Welcome to the Under the Hat podcast, the show where we talk about everything and anything that is top of mind in education. The goal is to provide meaningful conversation to what is currently happening in our classrooms. Stories, pains, moments of success. We want to hear it all. And hear it all we shall. And tonight, I almost said today. For me, it's like tonight. I know for my friend Oliver, certainly tonight for him. And so if you have never met Oliver, friends, I just need to just start out by saying this. Oliver and I are low key, not strangers. And I'm sure that Oliver kind of get into that, and we both will throughout the conversation. And so, as you know, folks, if you've been tuning in and listening, we're jamming out a lot of episodes this week, right? So this is episode 2, and so super thrilled that I get to share more magic, more inspiration, more stories with you all and with Oliver. If you are here listening and watching live, we have a few of our friends. Sophie is up in the house with us in the chat. Please, if you're joining, if you are joining, please say hi in the chat. Or if you're watching in the future, if you're catching this on Spotify or Apple, wherever you're catching your podcast, know that I am super accessible. And so, if you go to underhatpod.com, that is where you catch all things Under the Hat and everything you can find in terms of social media, the episodes, all of that fun stuff. So let's get it going. Oliver, how are you, my friend?
Peace and blessings to you, my man. Like I'm doing well here on this lovely evening. It's been great. Lots of traveling that I've done during the earlier portions of this week, back with the family. And now I get to, end out the week almost here with you right now, man. I'm really excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, no, likewise. And so I'm sure we'll talk about this somewhat. But Oliver and I, we have a bit of a history, right? We're colleagues in the company that we work for. We're both in the same kind of mindset of supporting, inspiring teachers, administrators in not just the tools, not just the technology, but everything that happens in the classroom, right? And how we navigate all that, whether it's the students, sometimes the policies, like all of that. And so Oliver and I, we have that background, and then we were also kind of low key collaborating even before we joined the company we now work for. And so Oliver, I know that you have a very, diverse background, right? Like, teaching was something that, you fell into, but it wasn't the first thing you fell into. No. So, for the people that don't know, maybe like a little bit of your context of how you got here and perhaps where you're going, and give us all of it, Oliver.
Okay, so it started off on March 19th. I was born, and no, I'm just kidding. We're not gonna go that far right now today, friends. But for me, my journey into the teaching, was really early in my life. But very particularly as I was finishing up college, I worked for the Apple company. And I did a little work in sales. I was just like really connecting and learning, different ways of how, people kind of got excited for, a certain product. I was always around electronics all the time. And I would always tell my mom, show my mom how to do certain things. She's like, I don't know how to do anything. She's, older lady from Jamaica. And, before my dad passed, it was like, I was the guy that was just like teaching everything and just figuring out different ways of how to provide learning. So, after being in sales, I had an opportunity to be a trainer, and I was doing workshops all the time for different different ages, from young to seasoned. I took care of all those folks. And, at one point somebody asked me, like, have you really considered like teaching? Like, you're actually really good. Like, I would be in your class. And I'm like, oh no, this person is gassing me up. They're just like telling me all these little follies, make me feel good. And I did feel good. I'm not gonna lie, I did feel good. But at that point, I was like, man, like I can't consider myself a teacher because the work that a teacher puts in, that goes unnoticed, that goes unthanked. Like I can't just jump into the game and just just do what they do. I already had got my bachelor's, on my way to getting the bachelor's. But a couple years after, I decided to leave the company and take a chance on myself, and work with young kids, work for Big Brothers Big Sisters for a little bit, as a program coordinator, try to connect the littles in like urban areas with like bigs to really get that mentorship and really get their name out there to be successful. That's what I was all about. And yeah, then it led to me deciding to leave that company and take another chance and do some substitute teaching. Just, just subbing in for some folks and checking things out, and really started to get a likeness to it. And then somebody offered me a full-time position. He's like, "Hey, wait a minute, you teach math, don't you? You was a math guy." And I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of am. Yeah, I am a math guy." And the rest is history here now, friend. Like I started my teaching career and I decided I wanted to go back to school. I already got my first master's degree, and then I wanted to go back and get an education degree because it really meant that much to me. I really do revere, the process that teachers who, actually went to, their undergrad and did all the things. I wanted to be a part of that. Um, because early in the times, people weren't really accepting me as like in the teacher world as well too. So I just wanted to just continue to grind and just continue to prove myself that I can be in this space. And now, over 10 years now, I'm here. I'm very well equipped in this space. I'm very excited to continue this on. Always an educator.
Yeah, no doubt. I kind of we were talking to so the last episode, Alex
Mhm.
Isaacs and I kind of had this conversation of like
Shout out
you
to
kind of
Alex.
yeah, big shout out to Alex. He totally rocked it and shared a lot of magic. We had that conversation though of like I'm seeing a lot more of like teachers, back in the day, at least it seemed like you go to
Mhm.
college, you go right into the profession, right?
Mhm.
And I see that with my own student teachers at my university that I work at. Uh, but now it's like it seems like it's more and more common now where folks they go into industry in some way, kind of like you did, and they enter the classroom that way. So what skills, like what benefits did you see? Like I know like there's like the whole like, oh, I have more life skills, more life knowledge and experience going into the classroom. But was there anything about working at Apple that really better armed you for the education space?
Yeah, absolutely. So, whatever passion I have, whatever thing like I absolutely believe in, I'm a brand person. Like if I'm all in with it, I'm truly all in. So they never had to really, focus on my skill set of like, taking things to the next level. They just needed to train me on all their products. So for me, it was just, really again trying to connect and finding different ways to engage with that customer, being able to relate in different ways with that customer or explaining something to a customer. We were talking about all the features of a laptop to somebody who might be in their 50s, or somebody that's a young teenager, being able to find those different ways to talk to those people and relate it to them to get them excited was one of the things that I feel like was, I don't know if Apple equipped me with that, but I guess it was like, their products were like a catalyst to unlock something that I didn't realize I already had. So I'm very thankful for that, that Apple experience, and then just them just like, yo, I think you should just try this. Okay, cool. Like, oh, I think you should try that. All right, cool. But it was always, yeah, it was always around like teaching and learning in that environment and space.
Yeah, and so now, like, because I know that you've left the classroom, right?
Mhm.
And are now in kind of the space of delivering professional learning,
Yeah.
like supporting teachers in that way. And for me, that's like, it was a for me personally, that was a big transition of like, okay,
Huge.
I'm
Huge.
training, I'm leading students,
Mhm.
children, which is phenomenal. Like that was a lot of
Right.
fun. But now leading adults, right? Or at least like, trying to better prepare them for the things that they would encounter in the classroom.
Mhm. Mhm.
So like, what has that been like for you in that transition, and kind of seeing yourself in that role as a leader, but
Yeah.
also as somebody that is still thinking back to the skills that you gained from the classroom, and then uh, obviously at Apple.
Yeah, for sure. It's crazy. It's been almost, it's been about, 3 years now, that almost 3 years that I've officially left the classroom. I finally had got my big boy job, my big boy teaching job after teaching and doing the substitute teaching thing, getting a full-time job at a charter, going to accelerated high school for kids who are undercredited and overaged, and then getting this big boy job at independent school right on the year of the pandemic happening. um, I really wanted to, can't, well, the program that I, used to really help me in my teaching, really helped me take things to the next level. And now wanting to, then leave the classroom, teaching older adults. I did a lot of night school as well during my earlier years of teaching. So I feel like that also helped prepare me to, again, relate to, teaching older adults, something that I'm truly passionate about. For earlier, it was about math. Now in this space, I'm doing ed tech. So it's been really great because I just wanted to feel like I wanted to get out of the box. I miss the kids too, just as much as any educator does. It's usually not the kids why we leave the classroom, low key, high key, maybe even, But I'm just saying, like I just wanted to be able to get my voice out there to the masses and really and truly inspire others. To in regards of like teachers saving time and being able to pass the baton the right way to the next generation of kids. Things that motivate me is, knowing that not a lot of black and brown people, particularly males, are, in the sector of education, particularly teaching. And I can't be everywhere. I was inspired enough to represent and be one of those, male educators, but I needed to find better ways to get a bigger outreach. And doing the work that I'm doing now with adults, leading professional development, providing people with solutions to help their pain points, is just is been so great for me, in this space now.
Yeah, and so that what you just said remind me of like, it was a conversation I had with a family member right when I was making the decision of whether or not to leave the classroom.
Mhm.
And she sat me down, and she was concerned. She was like, Steve, if you leave, and she felt, relatives, they engage with us differently, right? And um, maybe they pump us up too much, right? And,
Mhm.
and so
Mhm.
you kind of have to take it with a drink, with a grain of salt, I guess. But
Sure.
uh, she made this comment of like, Steve, like what you do for the 100 and something students that you teach per year, you are doing something truly unique and special. And so, maybe there is some truth to that, right? And,
Mhm.
and it, Oliver, like you have a good sense of how I talk because we're colleagues, and we
Yes.
we talk it out with the project-based learning, the community involvement I had, all that stuff. So it was kind of a hard, almost like a guilt, right? Be like,
Yeah, of
oh,
course.
I'm pretty talented at this thing and making
Yeah.
those connections and making authentic learning experiences for learners. So there's that guilt. But then it got to a point, I'm like, wait, what if I can inspire more folks on a more national, more global level of teaching in this way, right? Like, breaking what the tradition has been, breaking the status quo
Yeah.
of stand and deliver, take a test, stand and deliver, take a test. And I, at my school site, was very vocal, like kind of calling out, while we should still have the skill to memorize some things and be adequate
Of
and
course.
master certain things. But like, what about the authenticity that can exist in a classroom, right? And so for me, I was like, wait, what if I can spread this love even more?
Yeah.
So that certainly helped my guilt. And so that just resonated, and that just really spoke to me, like kind of what you're talking about like, what it means to leave the classroom, both the guilt, but also the positivity of spreading what we did and how positive it was, the outcome we saw of it, and hopefully kind of spreading that to people that would like to hear. And
Mhm.
to me, that's been the big joy of working for a company like ours, is they give us a microphone and the freedom to be ourselves and to speak our truth about the things that we're truly passionate about. Um, and so, yeah, just had to share that. So we're kind of at the point where we get to this moment of the show. And if
Mhm.
you've been listening, you know that I kind of call this show the one question show, right? Under the hat, but kind of boils down to that big question. And so that big question is, Oliver, what is under your hat at the moment? Like, you are working with teachers,
Mhm.
administrators, I'm sure, instructional coaches. I know that you're on the East Coast, and so you probably you're probably seeing and hearing a lot. I know that you're out in the
Mhm.
streets and conferences as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
What is top of mind right now? Like, what is something that either you think is like, oh, this is keeping me up at night, like this is an issue, or maybe something that's like, oh wow, like I'm really excited seeing this, that, or the other in the
Yeah.
education space, or maybe something in between. So what
Mhm.
is top of mind for you
So I
right
mean,
now?
yeah, it's a slew of different things that I'm, that's at the top of mind right now going on in education. Of course, the first thing that is at the very top right now is just like the adoption of AI. It's something it's here to stay. It's coming. It's just gonna continue on, just like when folks like got the internet coming out. That's when like cell phones came out, all the different things. It was just, we were worried that things were going to, make such dramatic change and it's going to be for the worse. I think that's the perception that is going on right now. The things that are like buzzing around, people are a little resistant to what things that AI can do. And, I try to shift the conversation about so much of the worry on students like using it to cheat or, to do something deceptive. I mean, I think there's numbers that are out there that show that kids or students, whoever, like if they're going to cheat, they're going to go ahead and cheat. They don't need any AI to go ahead and do that. But looking at that, or try to shift the conversation to telling people that, using this as a tool, to help assist you in, drafting a letter that you wrote, but just getting it into a cuter situation, I would want to say, or a more robust situation. If you're not somebody that is a great wordsmith, use this AI to help you, figure out how to polish this thing up. But of course, giving credit, doing all those different types of things, I think is also very important, because we're talking about integrity and plagiarism and all these different things that teachers are worried about. I think that there are ways to kind of meet in the middle. There are things that can be utilized with some AI, but then like you can still kind of have control of your classroom to say, all right, for this particular assignment, for this particular section and what we're doing, we're not using those AI tools. I need like human actual things going on. And I think once, more conversations are happening and some of those people are kind of like skeptical about it, I think they're going to kind of come to it, and things will be fine.
Yeah, I think what I've heard a lot is, oh, this AI thing is cool, but it only seems to be used, or maybe this is just a perception thing of like it's only being used for like productivity type of use cases or reasons in
Yeah.
the classroom, right? We're like, oh, cool. A teacher has to make a lesson, put it in a chat, and oh, develop me a lesson really quick, or a prompt, or a
Mhm.
um, and I've heard of that, like, well, I don't see the use there for like actual instructional purposes.
Mhm.
Um, and so maybe like I myself have to do like more, inquiry on that, right? Like, because I know there's like different, we're starting to see like these platforms to kind of do more and do
Yeah.
different things.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it does seem like, so like at one point I would imagine that it is going to break that threshold of just like, okay, productivity to full on like something else.
It's true. You're already starting to see other examples of that, like not necessarily education wise. I mean, even on people are still working remotely, cyber schools. I mean, now you can have a digital AI background now on some of these platforms. You can
Mm.
dragons in the alleyway, colorful dragons in the alleyway in New York City. Now I just have this beautiful masterpiece in the back where, I'm no artist, I know, but I want to have like a cute or I keep using the word cute, but I have like a really like impressive thing that could help me out to take me maybe further on to the next level. Like, use that thing. And then again, like being able to utilize this stuff like while you're young and in the classroom, I think that could be beneficial for things in the future, especially when the AI develops a lot more.
Yeah, no, for sure. And so if, because I know like you left the math classroom
Hmm.
right before all this like blew up. Like you and I both, like
Yeah.
you had left like a little earlier than I. Like
Yeah.
you may have had like maybe like a year, uh half a year on me.
Yeah.
Um if you were in the classroom now,
Hmm.
and with what you know of AI, the curiosity I have is like, how would you use an AI tool in a math classroom? Because I hear so much from ELA teachers be like, oh nope, the cheating up, the it's gonna,
That, that,
but like with math, like you still have to show all the work, right? Like, so like
true.
I'm just curious what you think, how what that would look like
Yeah.
in like an algebra class, let's say.
For sure. And I taught math for the majority of the time I was out there. And in regards to answering your question of how you can utilize AI, one of the things that I learned or I wanted my students to have was choice. All right. I am of the old age where I learned that you needed to show your work. Show your work, like show all the steps of how you got there. And as much as I appreciated that way of teaching, it gave me a lot of test anxiety, and I couldn't finish a lot of tests on time because I was so focused on getting all the work through. But that was the way how I learned it, and I was like, I want to pass this on to my students. But they revolted against me on that. Mr. Tingling, this is not what we're doing. We can't do this. So I used to just have them provide voice comments to me, explaining to me how they solved the problem. I didn't see all the work and the equations and things like that I would have loved to have seen, but I can assess them in that kind of way. So if I was still in the classroom, to answer your question, I would use the AI tools to have them, explain. They can still explain their work, but maybe it can generate out like an actual like visual look or a visual work, if you will, showing all the equations, showing how things are broken down. Because I think that we have to realize that there are people who just learn differently, and being able to see that visually versus just kind of like hearing that out and being an expert in hearing that are two different ways of learning, and somebody could benefit from how that looks. So that would be one way how I would utilize the AI tools, like voice to work, if you will, so I can have my cake
Yeah,
and eat it. Like,
yeah. We do have Alex Isaacs in not this chat, but I have him over here on Instagram. He's catching
hey,
this on the Instagram live.
shout out to
Um,
Alex. Shout out to
so
Alex. One love,
yeah,
one love.
big shout. he's saying so. Mr. Math Alex has taught math. He's saying that I use it to make real world connections to math concepts. So
That's another
like
way you
that,
can get that going.
yeah, and almost like what I don't know. Maybe it's just the circles I've had or whatnot, but I've never seen like project based learning really leveraged in like the math class, right? Like,
Yeah.
um, and I'm sure it is. Like, so if you're listening and
Yeah.
be like, no, I do that. Like, no shade, no
Right.
shade.
You got
Like,
a
I'm
bunch of
sure.
mad people on this podcast right now that's
Yeah,
uproar.
yeah,
They're ready to
yeah.
come
I,
after you
I
right
I'm
now. They're like,
I'm just
what?
saying I've not seen examples, right? And I'm sure there's a lot of you all out there doing that. But to
Yeah.
Alex's point, like that there could be a huge opportunity there for
Yeah.
an AI to build those real world connections.
Yeah. You made it, and like Alex, shout out to you again, like because I in my accelerated school that I was teaching at, we had that was our whole thing. We had to make, do PBLs the entire time. So like one of the things that I think would be really cool with the AI in that real world scenario, I had my students, they really liked basketball, so I just honed in on that and like try to have them looking at like all the numbers of their basketball statistics and being able to like make predictions of who might be the top draft pick based off of these numbers and how did we get these averages and just really getting down with some basic math lessons here. And I mean, we were just doing everything by hand and paper, and I think AI could have had a really good spot in that type of like scenario. I just brought that back to me right there. So yes, there is
Yeah.
examples of PBL out there. It's a
Yeah.
little.
No. I'm sure.
I know you. I
I'm
know. I'm
sure.
just.
I'm sure. And so, because when you, especially when you teach high school, you sometimes to a certain degree, you just are in your department, you're in your bubble, right?
Right.
So like when you leave, you're like, oh man, there's like all these different ways that you can do the things I was doing in a different context.
Yeah.
And so another shout to Alex because he's like, you got to make the material relevant to our young learners, right? And like what
Have
you
to.
just said, the statistics of that is like I never, again, I didn't teach math. I never even thought of that, right? Of like maybe you're looking at stats for like even like if you had like a fake fantasy league, let's say, right? Like
Yeah.
and build things out that way. Yeah, I really love that because I low key struggled in math as a student, like
Mhm.
as a high school student, and then even in college, right? Because I felt that like the only thing that I saw that of value was I just got to get that C. I just got to get through this thing and move on to the next, right? Like, and if that's your mindset, there's no relevancy, right? You're just
Right.
like, I know on this test, I need to get enough right answers. I was doing statistics to pass math without even really realizing. I'm like, I
Right.
just gotta, I just gotta hit this 70%.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
but again, like it's because there was no relevancy, there was no real world connections, and how
Right.
could a, an AI coupled with uh, a strong teacher, right, with a
Hmm.
caring teacher, meet these students where they're at to avoid that situation, right? That I had of, hey, all I care about is passing. But if you understand the relevancy and how it can be connected into a
Yes.
more meaningful, authentic context,
Yes.
that's the money right there. Like if you're
That's
a
where
math teacher, that's the money. Yeah.
That's where it's at. Like, yeah, I know all the concepts. I know how to get, to give you all that information, but it means nothing if there's no true connection of how does it imply to my life, where I come from, what my background is. And I think that's where the expertise of that teacher, like you said, a good teacher is gonna be able to decipher that. Like everybody learns differently. Everybody has, some people have an IEP, some doesn't. And you just gotta figure it out on the fly. And I think that is a beauty of being an educator. There's always a difference in learning that's not your own way of learning. And, for them to use those tools, those AI tools, and to get to where they need to be, um, hey, we got some future statisticians, they're watching the games anyway. And they're just like, yeah, the stats say that they should, go ahead and do that free throw. Like, how do you know? Like, how do they calculate that? Like, you're not curious about how they just like put that together? Like, and now, I got like little mini statisticians out there in the streets, just like talking all this like good stuff. Oh, the what and the why of statistics, like just like peppered in there. Like, oh, okay, like, and yeah, it's supposed to be, learning is supposed to be an experience, and I think
Mm,
that in the industry now, there's a lot of, because of like budget cuts and like, pandemic money running out and stuff like that. We're going back into that whole deal of like, we're just getting a bunch of warm bodies in the classroom. That people are just there for a check. They don't have that true passion that can help drive these students to where they need to be. And that's the part that's sad. That's that guilt that we talked about earlier. Is just like, there's nothing that we can, but there is something that we can do, and then, doing this work, is a part of that. And then trying to inspire these young kids so they can pass the torch on, and, really take the education to the next level, to, be able to hold things down for like my daughter when she goes to school, when they are in that higher level, my son when he's in that higher level. Like, I am trying to do and front load everything as much as I can to help change things out. But the industry is the industry at the moment right now, and teachers getting burned
yeah,
out and not getting paid enough.
yeah, and yeah, that's part of it. We do have, kind of pull it back a little bit. We do have Samantha in the chat.
Shout
Our
out to
friend Samantha.
Samantha. Hey,
Yep. And so just her comment on like data analysis and financial literacy was an
huge,
important part
huge.
of what I did in economics, right? As an econ
Mm-hmm,
teacher.
mm-hmm.
Um, and I can't speak again. I can only speak for the circle I was surrounded with. But like, like a lot of times, at least in my area, is like, oh, you went into to be a history teacher, but like, oh, I I ended up teaching econ, and so they're kind of like, but like for me, at first I was kind of like that. Like I had a political science background,
Yeah.
and I was like, okay, I have to jam out this econ thing. But once I got my hands deep into it,
Mm-hmm.
I started learning more about it and what it meant to teach it and how important it is
Yes.
to teach. And then I was like, wait a second, why are we waiting all the way till 12th grade to teach this stuff? Because like it is so important. Now, I will say that I know plenty of elementary teachers that they're doing economics like purposefully.
Yeah.
Um,
Early.
but it's being done like policy wise, right? Like for the
Mm-hmm.
most part, like it is and it's not. Um, and I really appreciated even though financial literacy should not be the whole thing of econ.
No.
Uh, it was certainly a big part and almost like really eye opening for students, especially they're about to leave. They're in 12th grade. They're seniors in high
Mm-hmm.
school,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, whoa, that's this whole credit card thing. That credit score. That's super important." I'm like,
What is
"Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
even in the night school that I taught, there is the same scenario, accelerated, but they're like, older folks. I mean, these folks were mothers, grandmothers, grandpas, like, and they're like going back and getting their high school diploma through the school district, right? Not a GED, like taking classes, and like they don't even know financial literacy, talking about credit cards, talking about like, yo, do you know what a stock is? Like, you get down with these bonds, like you don't invest, my guy, you don't get that, you know what I mean? And they're just like, no, we don't know anything about that. And how to balance a checkbook, like, yes, I still write checks, y'all. Okay. In 2024, I still write checks.
Me
Okay, I'm
too.
that guy. I write checks.
There's that one check I write a month. Yeah.
You feel me? Pass me that checkbook. You know what I mean? So it's crazy. Yeah, we're talking about students that are like just becoming seniors, but I mean, you gotta even think about those folks that have living life, bringing in new life, and like still don't know. So that's scary to me. And it's inspiring at the same time because I have my own tutoring business, Sharks Online School, and those are some of the things I still kind of do in regards to giving that tutoring, because the learning never stops. So not necessarily in a PBL standpoint, but just in general, because people need to know how to balance their books.
Yeah. So it's interesting that you point, because I was thinking about this last night. So like Oliver, just like you, I don't know if you're still teaching that night class, but I teach a night class now,
Mm-hmm.
and have done so for the last, I'm in my third semester, it's like a year and a half, and it's just a basic computer class, right? So it's just get on a Google Doc, learn basic word processing, soft skills, like
Right.
um, I kind of go a little deep, probably too deep. Like they do a little bit of web design towards the end, because they're like,
Right.
you all can do this, right? So like kind of similar audience, right? Like they're working towards some are working towards their GED.
Mm-hmm.
It's an enrichment class, so it's not graded, which is the jam. Like
That's
absolutely, I don't
awesome.
grade anything in that class.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
so
great.
it's full on enrichment, and uh but some people, they just take it. They're like, oh, I'm not trying to get a diploma or anything. I just want to get better at computers because my job requires it, right? And every time we go into Google Sheets, like they're like, oh, this is the party I was not invited to. What is going on up in here? And, and but so I kind of I let them struggle a little bit. I would kind of
Of
show them
course.
some basic stuff in Sheets, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Oliver, you know this about me. Like I love me a Google Doc, some Google Slides. I'll jam some. But when
You
it comes
jam
to
out.
Sheets,
You jam out on certain
even
things.
no, even me in Sheets though, I'm like, that's not my environment. I know how to get by, but I'm not. Sophie's not here anymore. I'm not a Sophie where I'm making it all look cute and pretty, right? I'm not doing formulas up in there, right? But I can get
Right.
by. But every semester when I show these my adult learners, the templates. So the templates in Sheets, if you've not played with those templates, those are fire. So there's a checkbook template in there. And then as soon as they get their hands on it, they're like, wait, I'm putting numbers in, it's just calculating it for me. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
And to me, that's like, for like tech guys like ourselves, be like, oh yeah, no, that's there. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But if
No,
you
it's
don't know that's there, and if you've been
mind
spending
blowing.
your whole life doing it on paper,
Yeah.
you're like, oh man, this is
Yeah.
the jam. So like it's stuff like that, making those connections within
Mm-hmm.
that financial literacy across
True.
any subject area,
That's
right?
true. It's
Yeah. So
almost
that
like we take it. It's almost like we take it for granted. Like you said, like we're tech guys, and we're just like, oh, like yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. But then like just seeing the joy and seeing that change on their face, knowing that you've inspired them, using technology here, to your advantage, to their advantage is always an exciting thing right there. So always appreciative
and
of moments like that. But we do take it for granted, I think, sometimes.
yeah, and like you kind of going back to what you said about math is like we all learn different ways and we all have different
Mhm.
experiences and backgrounds.
Mhm.
So going back to that class, like I saw a joy last night because one of the things that we purposefully learned, and again, like this is stuff that we know, but if you don't know,
Right.
and now you know, it's
Now you
like,
know.
oh wow, this is this is game changing. So they learned last night, Control C, Control V.
Copy
And
and
they're like,
paste.
bro,
Ah!
and the thing is, if you don't know, like if you've never even like if you just been retyping stuff out your entire life, like
Yeah.
then
How
you're
much
like, oh
time has
my
been wasted?
yeah. And the joy. And then but here's the kicker. So they learned that, and then I was like, you know what? I'll show you one even better. Control Z. Bro.
A little undo. A
Control
little
Z.
undo.
And then they're like, oh, how many mistakes I've done.
Backspace,
Pull it
backspace,
back.
backspace, backspace.
And and so they were, and they were they're on a platform that I built out for them, and it prompts them with questions, and like,
Right.
oh, I got it wrong. They were stressed that they were getting things wrong, and I was like, who cares?
Yeah.
Getting it wrong, you're still learning, right? They're like, yeah.
Right.
I'm like,
Right.
you're just this is like old school, literally old school trauma
School.
of like,
Yeah.
oh, I got the question wrong on the quiz, on the test. I'm like, we're not grading it. It's all
Right.
good. It's all
Right.
about the, like you said, the experience, right? And
Yes.
them getting so excited and no judgment by learning something they've never been exposed to before, right? And it's
No.
again going back to that inspiring people and that passion. Um,
Yeah. We usually see right on the TV. When we were growing up, that's what we would see on the TVs. When you think about, when you see like what school is portrayed like, and then when you actually get there, it's actually nothing close to whatever it was on the theatrics of television. But like you still had that as like a jumping point, and yeah, like there was this such a pressure, maybe from parents as well, but like also just from the society, just you gotta do just real good because you gotta go to college and you gotta do this. And that path is not necessarily for everybody. We've learned that now through the years. And we're trying to mend some of that trauma that we've experienced to lessen the trauma, but give more good vibes for the future right now. So it's cutting edge. You got to go against the grain. It's tough. You're gonna get scrutinized a little bit still by old school like educators, um, but it's totes cool to make those mistakes and get things wrong. I think about even like people playing video games, like they die, but then they respawn and they learned that they can't go underneath that bridge because you're probably going to get crushed. And loosely based, of course, but you get the whole point. Like you got to have that opportunity to keep trying again, and then getting that joy knowing that you took that journey is where it's at. And that's the thing that needs to be pushed a lot more forward than the stuff in the past.
yeah, yeah, no, and absolutely, and I think that's where, as where Oliver, you and I are both in the field of like training teachers on
Mm-hmm.
technology, right?
Mm-hmm.
um like a lot of times, like we point out the things in ed tech that are there for logistical, maybe productivity kind of reasons, but I always try to get, so like as an example, like the thing that teachers always want to know about the platform that we train on a regular basis is like, I want to be able to look at all the student work, like I'm
Everything.
like, facts, that's cool. But a lot of times their mindset's always like, oh no, I want to check if they're actually doing it. I want to
Mm-hmm.
check if they're like on a different tab or whatever. I want to check. It always comes down to the behavior, and that's fair, right? That's
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. We
what
were once
what
young.
what, what we were once young, right? So like what I try to get them to think about is like, there's that, but there's also this. And it's what
Right.
Sophie would put up is like that public embarrassment of like, oh, I got it wrong. Like, oh, I got called on and now I don't know the answer. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, and we have that like low key in the industry where like
Mm-hmm.
your manager's like, hey, do you know this answer? And I'm like, I,
Nope.
maybe. Yeah. Sometimes I don't know, like, and so like we know what that embarrassment's like, right? So like when we're talking about ed tech and how you can like monitor work on a safer level where you can give feedback now with a tech tool or
Mm-hmm.
with several tech tools, or like even
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm sure like if it hasn't been a thing already, like AI can play a role with that, right? Like letting a
Yeah.
student feel safe and be able to take that risk, because I want them
Mm-hmm.
to give the most authentic answer that they
Of
have,
course.
to
Of
better
course.
critique, to better gather data, and to better personalize that experience for them, to meet them where they're at, right? And oh, this right here, to normalize the struggle and the process, right? to
Yes.
normalize that it's okay to be wrong, to rethink how we approach and engage with failure, and maybe
Hmm.
even throw that word out altogether, right? Like maybe
Yeah.
like
Opportunity to learn more. Like,
opportunity to learn more. Roadblock, I really love that word roadblock, of just like
hmm
roadblock makes it seem like it's not a failure on me necessarily, but it's a failure on a nuance of things, right? Whether it's the
right.
environment, the day I'm having, the
Yep.
training I had before, right? Like whatever
hmm
the case is, right?
hmm
So like just changing that, and this, I love that we're kind of like wrapping this up in this kind of talk, Oliver, because
Yeah.
we kind of have this, the title of this episode is innovative pedagogy versus overcoming those challenges, right?
Yeah.
um, are there any challenges that you've experienced, that you've seen in the classroom, that we haven't touched yet, and how did you kind of go about addressing those challenges?
Yeah, again, the biggest challenge I just continue to talk about again is just like being able to cater to all of the diverse learning that's coming in. We oftentimes have to just drive an agenda. We have to get to these standards. We got to get to the lesson planning, and it teaching is a craft, and getting to know your students to be able to provide different ways that the students can learn in your classroom. It takes time. It's not something that can be thought of overnight, and we oftentimes are thrusted into doing such things. And then students leave. You have a turnover, and then you're learning a whole different way again. So I think additionally, being able to keep students engaged as well too. We have a lot of different things that are distracting them. You mentioned them earlier: environments, the day that they're having, all the time as well is definitely a challenge. Like, there's a student, I'm just like, like, okay, you didn't get this work done. I'm like, but yo, how are you though? Like, what's going on? Like, are you cool? No, my mom just died. Like, but I just had to come to school today, like, to get my, like, okay, we are doing something different with, what I mean? We gotta pivot and shift, but then still be able to teach, a differentiated way with all of our students, being able to handle all of that, being able to wear, for all pun intended, wear many hats. We could not say the word hat on under the hat podcast. So, I had to, I had to get it down there at the end. But just being able to have that differentiation for the personal learning experiences is often a challenge, because no one student learns the same way. So
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. And like kind of that was my memory too, of you know these diverse classrooms in a diverse country, right?
yeah.
Which is great. Seen all of it, and
hmm
seen the different degrees of trauma. Uh, you know that is what really taught me how to like multitask in a way that was really prepared me for now industry, because I feel like I'm a pretty good multitasker.
Right.
My wife doesn't think so, but that's different context. That's different context.
That's
That's
a
like
different context.
that it's a little different.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
love it.
and
Shout out to
I
all the
honestly
married
can't.
folk in the building. Shout out to all the married
Yeah,
folk. You already
yeah, and
know.
I don't even know how to describe it other than it's just different, which
Just
is
doing it.
probably a bad answer, and a bad excuse for like it's the types of things I
Yeah.
can't I can't multitask in like the household, but in work I do. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird.
It's weird.
Um,
It's weird. I've had my share of trying to do my multitasking. I have my young son here, 2 years, almost 2 years old, and trying to get that work going on at the same time. It's definitely a challenge. It's definitely a challenge, but just trying to work through that. But I don't know. I might probably say something a little bit different though, just like like you said.
yeah, yeah. And Sophie's in the chat, just laughing,
Cracking
laughing,
up.
laughing. Yeah.
Married
Yeah.
folk.
Yep. that
This podcast
is,
is going left real quick right now.
oh yeah,
Just
oh yeah, and that's okay. That's okay.
under the hat
Uh,
after hours.
what whatever's top of mind, right? And so just so you know, folks, my wife's in the chat on Instagram, and she is verifying what I just said. It's like, it's so true. um, love it, gotta
So
love it.
good.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
good.
So Oliver, thanks again. Like I felt like you had so much, wisdom and power behind
Mhm.
your messaging and behind what your goals are, what your mission is, what your
Yeah.
passions are, right? And we all truly appreciate that. um where, if people are trying to connect with you, find you somewhere, perhaps on social,
Yeah.
what's the best place to
Yes.
reach out to you if they need support?
No, 100%. So on Instagram, Sharks Online School. On Twitter X, I'm Tingling Oliver. So my last name, yep, first name right over there. Reach out, send some good vibes. Definitely share some really great, teacher tips and different ways of how we can, truly work together. I'm just a puzzle piece in the very big picture here. Being able to connect with folks like yourself, Steve. I really revered you when we did a conference together. We did a global conference together, and I'm like, man, this guy is a celebrity. I'm just happy to be in the same space as him, and now we're working together and getting to see what we can do. Not just only me, I have my mission, but it really does take a village, and it takes a lot of different people to get it going. And it's just been truly a journey and an exciting thing to continue these vibes with you and all of my amazing colleagues and new friends that I'm going to make after this great podcast when it becomes one of the things on the top charts and all of the streaming podcast platforms. You heard it here first, friends. You heard it here first.
I appreciate you. Yes. So this will go live on the Spotify, on the Apple, on the Amazon. I am in the process. As you know, I wear many different hats, but with the time that I have, I am trying to get the podcast onto more of the podcast platforms. So expect that to be dropping soon. Also, expect something in the foreseen future, something of a store, because at one point I was like, wait, I can't have Under the Hat podcast with no actual Under the Hat podcast hats. So I that's something
Merch.
I that is something I'm working on. So I don't know if it's going to happen this season. My plan is to run this season all the way through the month of May, and to get those summer months off. And so season 2 will start sometime in the fall, but I do plan on at the very least having some sort of merch, some sort of store by the time we kick off season 2. And so when this episode goes live today, I will drop in Oliver's links. We'll kind of have a little bit of a breakdown in the show notes. So all of that will, you can catch that there. Also, feel free to catch the YouTube channel. And again, all of these links, all of this stuff can be found on the website on underthehatpod.com. Subscribe to the channel. Then if you prefer the video, the accessibility of things, if you prefer the video version of the show, you can catch all that there. Or you just listen on things like Spotify. So friends, thank you again. We're coming to the end of this episode. Oliver and I both appreciate everybody that's listening. I appreciate everyone that's listening. And, we're back at it. We have one more episode this week, Saturday morning. So this will be my first time doing an episode on a Saturday. And so I'm really pumped to have coffee and run an episode. We're joined this Saturday by Dan Jones, who's another person that I met on the interwebs. We'll be talking about his book. We're talking about his work. Him and I share similar hats with like how we taught. So I'm super excited about that. And friends, thank you again. I appreciate every single one of you. Until next time, Keep your hats on, but your minds open. Have a good night.